Welcome to the Mindset Coach podcast, brought to you by the Mindset Coach Academy. I'm Lara Young, your host and Master Certified Coach. Whether you're a seasoned coach or just starting your coaching career, this podcast is your go-to resource for all things mindset, coaching, and personal development. Each week, we bring you expert insights, practical strategies, and inspirational stories to help you become the best coach you can be. Our guests range from leading industry professionals to successful mindset coaches who share their secrets for creating lasting change. Plus, I'll be answering your burning questions and sharing tips from our ICF and multi-accredited Mindset Coach certification program. So, if you're ready to elevate your coaching game, stay tuned and let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Mindset Coach podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Nadia Finer. Nadia is the UK's leading shyness expert. She's the author of 2 books about shyness, Shine Mighty and Shine Mighty for Kids. She's also the host of the Shine Mighty podcast and a coach specialising in shyness. Nadia is on a softly spoken mission to help shy people to be more mighty. And she's one of the Mindset Coach Academy's OGs. Welcome, Nadia.
Hello.
It is so lovely to see you. And I know that everyone's going to be interested in how you came to specialise in helping individuals, both adults and children, to overcome shyness. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so I think the first thing to say is that I am a shy person and I always have been. I don't think I always realised that's what was going on. I just felt like there was maybe something holding me back constantly. Like I always liken it to a big elastic band. Maybe I'd try and do things or put myself out there or be visible or perform in front of others. And I just felt blocked, like I couldn't do it. And I didn't really understand why. There's a whole long story, which we can talk about later. But mainly the reason I started to do this kind of work was, well, I had a bit of an epiphany. I was already coaching, speaking a little bit through my work supporting female entrepreneurs. And I was invited to speak at this massive event for teenage girls. I'd written a book and they wanted me to be on a panel and do a talk. And I was nervous, I was really scared and nervous. But I agreed. And I'd done stuff before, but it was always tricky for me to do. There was a lot of anxiety and kind of sweatiness. And I was on this panel, and there's something about a panel which, if it's not run well, is very challenging because you have to fight to speak. Like you have to put yourself forward to answer a question. You literally have to grab the microphone, in some cases. And it was not going that well for me. There were hundreds of teenage girls in the audience and I had not said a word.
Yeah.
And I just was looking at the audience thinking, this is awkward and I really need to say something. I have things I want to say, but it was too easy for me to sit back.
Yes.
And let the others talk. So other people were dominating the conversation. No one invited me into the conversation. And it was a public conversation, It wasn't just, a chat among friends. This was embarrassing. So I really wanted to just slip off my chair under the table and vanish, but I couldn't. And all sorts of, in these kind of situations, you're thinking, aren't you, because you're not speaking. And I was thinking, what is happening here? Why can't I say anything? Like, why am I not able to speak up when I have things to say? And I was looking at these kind of expectant faces in the audience, and then I glanced at the others on the panel, and it just occurred to me that you don't hear from people like me very often because speaking up is tricky.
Yeah.
I'm a quiet person. Other people tend to be loud. They're very sure of themselves. Sometimes what they're saying isn't that insightful or interesting, but they say it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I just thought, if I don't say something in this situation, all these girls, not only do they not get to hear from me, but they don't get to hear from a quieter person. They're only hearing from one type of person. So I was thinking all this, obviously not saying anything, and then I finally managed to say something, and I realized that when I do speak, people kind of connect with what I'm saying. And for the right people, my message or the content of what I'm saying resonates and it matters. So it gave me a purpose, and I felt like there was some sort of like magic kind of electricity or something in that room when I did speak.
Yeah.
So when I went home, I thought, think there's something in this. Like I feel like there are no shy people. Where are the shy people? We don't hear from them. And so that's kind of why I started to do it. That's a bit of a long story, but essentially, yeah, we're not represented.
It's I think it is a very powerful origin story because, you have an incredible voice, and you were a business coach prior to the work that you're doing now, and you're still doing some business coaching, and, having a lot of, wisdom and a lot of thoughtfulness and a lot of thinking means that you do have a lot to say and that it is valuable. And I think there's a distinction here, isn't there, between, the difference between a shy person and someone who's introverted, because sometimes those two can get a bit confused. How would you describe the distinction between those?
Yeah, they do get confused. It's really interesting because a lot of introverts who would not consider themselves to be shy get quite offended if people accuse them of being shy or say maybe they've misunderstood. So I think it's important to clear up the difference. So introversion and extroversion, the way I see it, it's about energy and where you get your energy and where the situations in which your energy might feel like it's being drained from you. So, if you're at a party, you, as an introvert, might find that that is a little bit draining after a few minutes because there's so many people and your social battery, which people talk about, kind of drains down. You maybe go to the kitchen, hide in the kitchen, do a bit of washing up, or just fluff around with some crisps or something to just kind
And around the hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah, like keep busy, help out, just be like, and then you might make your excuses and go home because it becomes exhausting. Now, a shy person may also be in the kitchen, but for different reasons. So they're not necessarily feeling drained, they're feeling uncertain and a little bit anxious, perhaps. Unsure, maybe they feel uncomfortable and self conscious because they don't know people very well. They're worried about what people think about them, about being judged. They'd much rather have a chat, a deeper conversation with maybe one other person at times, somewhere quieter, than be in a noisy environment where they feel like they're kind of on show. So they too might be in the kitchen, but for slightly different reasons. Now, it gets complex because you can have shy introverts and shy extroverts. So I would say I'm actually probably erring towards the shy extrovert. So I like being around people. If I have a problem, I want to talk about it with lots of people. I I like being with my friends, but when I meet new people, I feel nervous, or if I have to talk in front of a group of people, or I feel like I'm being watched or judged, for example. So the funny thing is, a podcast with you, because I know you, like it's like me and you have known each other a long time. I feel comfortable chatting to you, and so it's all right, Whereas if I was visibly in front of lots, a lot of people, I would feel more, I'd feel like they were looking at me and I'd worry about all kinds of things. So there's a similarity. I think an important thing to state is like Susan Cain, who you've probably read her book Quiet, she did a lot to champion the cause of introverts. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But shyness has a lot of shame attached to it, and people feel, I guess, shy and embarrassed and self-conscious about being shy. So I don't think it is a shameful thing. I don't think it's something that we should make out to be a flaw or a problem or even a kind of a disability. I've heard it described as, and it's just not, because according to research, 57% of people are shy.
Yeah.
It's loads. Depends on the country you're in, but on the whole, it's about half. And it's much higher in places like Japan or Scandinavia. So if that's the case, I would sense that actually you've got a population of people, half of them are more outgoing, half of them are more on the shy side, and that we just all need to be a bit more understanding towards each other, essentially.
It's really interesting, I think, that whole balance, though, between introversion, extroversion, which, as you say, is extroversion. People who have an extroversion preference tend to get their energy from being with people. People who have introversion want to recharge their batteries by doing typically solitary things, right? Reading a book, being at home. It's how you plug your socket back in to come back to life, right? And shyness is something completely different. And I think it's, a lot of people, the work that I do, they always say to me, oh, you're such an extrovert. But the truth is, I'm not an extrovert. I don't have extroversion. I have a little bit of extroversion, but not a lot. I think, when your role demands that you do that, or when you're in a job that you love, where you're working and being with people, then you kind of lean more into that, right? And I would also define myself, I think, socially as quite shy. It does take me quite a while to kind of think, and those feelings of awkwardness that you talk about and insecurity, I kind of like to get the lay of the land rather than kind of, bounding up like a expectant golden retriever puppy into the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Stroke me.
No, exactly. Maybe you like more of a lurker. I'm more likely to kind of lurk on the sidelines. Like if I go and watch a band, which I love to do, I like to like cling slightly to the wall, and literally like a wallflower, watch the band with my beer and my friends around me, but I'm not really that keen on jumping around or dancing until I've had quite a few beers. And then I might, but in a kind of subtle way. I don't know. And then because my introversion will kick in at some point, I'll be like, right, that's enough. And I'll do a French exit where you just leave.
You just leave. That's one of my favorite. I was always known for that, where you're just kind of like, oh, I'm
like,
inviting everyone, because people will just be like, oh, stay, have another drink. Come on, what are you going home?
No.
Just like,
no, now it's like I'm gone. And the funny thing is, my really good friends know I start getting a bit sort of fidgety and I look in my eye. They're like, they call me out on it now. They're like, we know what you're going to do. I'm like,
you've got that shifty look about you.
I look shifty. They're like, you either need the toilet or you're going to run off. I'm like, I just go, oh, look over there, there's a squirrel. And then I just leg it. But I think the interesting thing is to think about the times when you don't feel shy. So at the gym where I go, I do a lot of boxing. Now the gym, they're like my gym family.
Yeah.
And when I've got these people around me and I'm in that environment, pretty much everyone knows me, they respect me.
Yeah.
I don't really feel that shy.
No.
Like I feel fine. Like I can do demos, I can teach. I feel pretty confident. No matter who comes through the door, I will be okay. But it's because it's familiar.
Yeah.
It's because I don't have to explain myself and introduce myself each time. And it's because I know that other people have got my back, And that's in the workplace, that's called psychological safety. So you feel like, if you made a mistake, no one would really mind. They're not going to belittle you or vilify you. You're just going to laugh it off and they all support you. And I think a lot of work environments need to do a bit more culturally to to create that vibe so people feel able to experiment, to put themselves forward and to speak up. So it's just, I think it's interesting to think about the times when you actually feel okay and like you can do anything and be yourself authentically. And so, yeah, I'm lucky because I have, obviously my home and then there when I feel okay. We don't all have that, and I think sometimes our families can contribute towards our shyness. Like, it's interesting, research has shown that shyness is caused by different things. So you could argue that you can inherit it from a parent, like genetically, but also if you have an anxious or shy parent, they're modeling that kind of behavior. So potentially you are more likely to pick that up in your family hub or in your family life. But also if you have a dominant parent, or a sibling, even people who kind of try and control you or put you down, shyness can emerge. So you can imagine if you've got that at home, but then if you have it at work as well, it can bring that out of us. So trying to be in an environment where you feel supported and encouraged and people understand, and they, when you need a little bit more time to warm up, rather than embarrassing you or putting you on the spot, people maybe make space for that. So that's going to help for sure.
Yeah, and that, I think it's interesting, isn't it, when we think about that from a parenting perspective too, because you work with both adults and shy children, that if you are a shy adult, how are you role modeling those behaviours and those fears and those feelings for your children by your actions, maybe by not going to places or only going to places where you feel comfortable and familiar, or as you say, by being a more dominant parent where they don't kind of have that opportunity. So that's interesting. And do you tend to come across that with your clients in adults recognizing that in themselves, or more that they had that growing up?
Yeah, I do. And it's interesting because you can see it playing out. So I'll either get parents contacting me saying, I'm worried about my child because I experienced this and I don't want them to have the same thing. And I still feel like a shy person and I want to help them navigate these years of development to help them find, good friends or enjoy their school experience more than they did. Or I get the other end where the parent says, I just don't understand. I don't understand why they're like this and they need to snap out of it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a little bit more challenging. Yeah, for everybody. So yeah, we do see that, but it's interesting because the impact of shyness can be felt at different ages quite dramatically. There doesn't seem to be one particular point in time when it's more exaggerated, I would say. So for example, we've got, kids who are like 3 or 4 or 5 at school, starting school, they feel very shy. They're not used to being away from their parent. Then, transitioning to secondary school and the big change there. Then secondary school into adolescence. Then you've got like university is quite challenging. I remember that very well. And the workplace. So there's a lot of difficult kind of flashpoints, I guess. And then another one is obviously working for yourself and being potentially, a coach or a self-employed person where you haven't got that kind of family or team around you to support you. So you feel like very exposed and alone, talking about what you do, putting yourself forward. You don't necessarily feel comfortable with the pressure that we have on us now to document and share so many aspects of our lives and our experience. And, if you're trying to get customers or clients, it can be challenging for people who really just want to get on with doing the work that they love.
Have a question you'd like answered on the show? Or maybe there's a topic you'd love for us to dive deeper into? Reach out to us via social media or email us directly through our website. Your input helps us create content that's relevant and valuable to you. Remember, this podcast is here to support you on your coaching journey. So please do connect with us. We can't wait to hear from you. And I guess at all those stages too, there's emotional dysregulation as well, and that whole feeling of psychological safety and threat and fight, flight, fear and fawn, the response that comes out. And, having even, a parent say, come on, go forward, go and say hello, or having that pressure, or come on, Johnny, get up and do your speech in front of the class, or
yeah, it's too much.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize how big a deal that is.
Yeah.
For them, it seems like nothing. They don't understand why you can't do it. But, to put it into context, so I run my Shine program in schools, and it's a beautiful thing actually, because I get to go into schools and once a month I run a session for different age groups. So there'll be like 2 years together and in a small, quiet group. And we use kind of journal therapy techniques where there's a lot of writing and drawing and thinking and not that much speaking, but some of the kids never speak. Like some of them are actually basically mute in school. So I don't put any pressure on them to say anything, actually. I try and encourage people to generally maybe say something, but if they don't, it's fine. I can read what they've written, I can share it on their behalf, it's fine. But to be in that quiet space where there is no pressure, that's actually just like revolutionary.
That's a relief.
What a relief.
It must feel like such a relief, because it's physiological and emotional, right? That response, that reaction when you're like, oh my gosh, even that sense of like, oh my gosh, my turn's coming up to introduce myself. Even as adults, if you're going on a group program or something, and you're waiting and you can see the host of the program.
That's terrible for me. I can't do that. It's a lot. It gives me flashbacks to like university where I'd be like freaking out by the time it got to my turn, but it's still the same. I still feel that. But imagine that all the time, and then you go between classes to in the corridor, and I even just feel overwhelmed, and I only go and visit these places. There's huge people everywhere who are barging into each other. It's so noisy. It's just a lot. And then if you've got a teacher who's expecting you to stand up and speak in front of 30 people, and they're all judging you, like whether it's what your hair looks like or how you're wearing your uniform, let alone the content of what you're saying, it's a lot. And so I think we need to dial it back and see that a little step is perhaps even to say something to the teacher. So I have a girl in one of my groups who always draws. She's always like doodling and drawing. She's an amazing artist, actually. And she has been with me for a couple of years now, but the other day she took me to one side at the end of our workshop, and she told me that she'd played the piano in a restaurant, like in front of the guests. I know. I couldn't believe it. She's one of the quietest members of the group and groups. And the fact that she was able to do that, she wanted to tell me about it. It was just incredible. And ever since then, she tells me about her little wins. Like she'd written a poem and she showed it to me. And I think just by providing support, let alone the content, it's even just the space to the safety and the space to allow people to be themselves and to quietly contribute rather than society is set up for louder people, really. It can feel that way anyway.
Yeah. And to share those quiet moments of celebration as well. I've done this thing, I've expressed myself, I've done something in that way. So if there's And it's interesting that you mentioned earlier about, shyness when it comes to, entrepreneurs and business owners who are working at home and having to get out there on social media, for example. What are have you got any strategies? Because I know you've got your books for kids, Shy and Mighty, and then Shy and Mighty for Kids, but you got any strategies for shy entrepreneurs or business owners who recognise that they want to get out there and put themselves forward a bit more, but have that fear of doing so?
I think the first thing is to tap into your purpose. So if you know that what you're doing is important and you're helping people, presumably you are, focus on them and the work that you're doing. That's why you're doing it. You don't want to put yourself out there just for the sake of your ego or vanity. It's not that. It's about something bigger. The expression that it's like bigger than your fears. So if you can really kind of hone in on that and understand that, yeah, it's going to be tricky to do an interview, maybe for a podcast or to attend an event. You might feel uncomfortable, but it doesn't matter if you feel a bit uncomfortable because the thing you're doing matters more. So that's the first thing. Once you can realize that, I remember giving a talk and I was sitting on the side, waiting to go in to do the talk. And there was a PR kind of guru there about to do the talk after me. And he said, well, I was nervous. I can't lie. It was obvious. So, so much so he said, well, if you don't do it, like if you just left it and you didn't do it, who would you be helping? And I was like, well, nobody. So exactly. So, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You might need a fresh t-shirt afterwards. But the fact is, if you do it, you're going to help some people and that's important. So there's that. Then I would say you have to find a way to do it that works for you. You don't have to replicate other people. Like I know there's stuff that I just hate and I'm never gonna do. It's just awkward for me. I don't feel like it would be not proving anything to anybody because I ultimately need to find a way of being visible, which is doable for me on a regular basis. If it's something I can do once and then it takes me a year to recover and I'm so freaked out I will never do it again, that's not really that useful. We all know that consistency is key. So you've got to find a thing you can do consistently. So if that is taking a picture of flowers in your garden every day and posting that, if that's relevant somehow to your business, well, then do that. Or if it's writing a blog or, what can you do that is manageable and it's, moderately uncomfortable to start with, but you'll be okay because it matters to your people, but it's okay for you to do without having a heart attack.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had this thing that happened at the start of the year, and I don't know, maybe I was in an alternate universe or something, but I thought to myself, gee whiz, this year I'd like to go to a conference. Right? And so, exactly. So I found a conference to go to and I booked it, and it's in September. And ever since I booked it, I've had, even when I talk about it, I'm like, and I had to make sure that the accommodation, I could stay somewhere by myself. And I haven't booked the plane tickets yet. So I'm like doing all my own mindset work to say, recognize that this is important. But in the back of my mind, I'm also like, you don't have to go. You don't
have to go, but you are also allowed to make it as easy as possible. So, would it help you to have some friends come with you?
Yes. Are you offering?
Is it in Australia?
Yeah.
Are you paying? I think we feel as though in order for something to count, you've got to just be up on the stage by yourself. You have to do everything all on your own, and that's just not true. So if you could manage to create some content for social media, but you find posting it difficult, get someone to do the posting for you. Or if you feel alone in your business, try and think about ways you could be part of a team or a network or something where you've got other people. You go to a, you're in a sort of co-working space, or you're, a way in which you could actually just not be completely by yourself.
And I think it's interesting, isn't it, that sometimes, and I know this with the coaches that I train and people that I work with and their clients, that, sometimes you think you have to take this almighty leap rather than just do small steps. And I know that for me, it is a recognition when I made that decision, I need more people interaction this year and want to go and thought I'll go to a conference, that, that is something that I do want to have more of. And having moved back from the UK, where I was co-working, people were coming to my house. I was going to meet up with other people and, have those sessions where we used to get together and do all of that. It does make a difference when you don't have that. And even having a team, and working remotely, sometimes I do think, I just would really like to be in person with others. So I think, I do know some people who are going to be at the conference. So we'll see what happens. I'll keep everyone tuned as to whether I actually go to the conference or not.
I think you should go to the conference, but I think you should go and meet up with your friends when you're there. I always believe in baby steps, and I think that's one of the things I work on with the Shine program online and also with my clients. The steps forward are small. It's okay, because this is sort of changing your behavior, changing the way you feel about things over a long period of time. It doesn't matter if you don't, you're not going to just resolve everything in a month. It takes time. So therefore, taking these small steps is the way to go. And I think, also, this is not something anyone would ever imagine getting help with before. Like, it wasn't something people ever even discussed or talked about because of the shame, because it just seemed like something we should grow out of. And I think, therefore, asking for some help and getting a bit of support really does make a massive difference, because previously, chances are you've been doing all of this by yourself for like the past, 20, 30 years. And so that's what I did. Just of course I'm fine. Kind of not fine, but don't really want to talk about it.
You work with shy people, obviously. They're your audience, and whether they're entrepreneurs, adults, children, people in your Shine program. How do you encourage them to put their hands up to come and work with you?
The way that it seems to work is that they haven't heard anyone talk about this.
Yeah.
Like, nobody seems to talk about this. And it makes sense to me because we're shy, we don't. And so now that I'm here, seemingly alone, discussing this topic, they'll hear my story, they hear me, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone, I'm not broken, it's okay. And if there's somebody that understands, that seems to be the key, like having someone that really gets it, because I think perhaps before anyone that discussed this topic ever was like coming at it from like maybe without the lived experience and without the empathy, and just kind of telling people to get a grip kind of thing, which is not particularly helpful. Not really. So I think it's about the connection, and once you've got that, it seems like people trust that I know what they're experiencing and that I can help them.
Yeah, and that's so important. And so tell us a bit about now, how can people work with you? We're going to put all of your details underneath this episode, so you'll have access to Nadia via all of her social platforms and her website. But Nadia, tell us how people can reach you and how can they work with you more specifically?
Okay, so I think the first thing is head over to my website, shyandmighty.com. Everything's on there. You'll find information about the Shine program, which is a kind of a more hands-off experience. So if you want to just work through books by yourself in your own time, they've been designed to help you with the various challenges of shyness. It's divided into 3 sections. So you start with reflection, and then you rise, and then you shine. So it's a longer process. It's not 5 minutes. So each month there's new content for you to work through. And that's the most affordable way, and also the most kind of independent way that you can work on these things. And then if you want to work with me directly, you can book in for some coaching one-to-one. I work with teenagers one-to-one through to adults of all ages. So you just book in through my website, and I will help you to step forward out of the shadows and into a bigger life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nadia. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. And I look forward to everything that's happening for you in the future. And Nadia's got a new book coming out next year. I won't tell you about that, but we'll let you know.
On the down.
Keep an eye out for it. Thanks, Nadia.
Thank you.
That wraps up today's episode of the Mindset Coach podcast. I hope you found it as inspiring and informative as I did. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow coaches. Your support helps us reach more people and continue to bring top-notch content every week. Remember, you can always learn more about our ICF and multi-accredited Mindset Coach certification program, our coaching membership, and other training opportunities by visiting mindsetcoachacademy.com. Thank you for tuning in, and keep striving to become the best coach you can be. Until next time, this is Lara Young signing off. Stay motivated and keep transforming lives.